Kaitlyn. It's
Yes.
nice to meet you.
So good to meet you. Thank you for driving. Go ahead.
Thank you for letting us in your home. We do
Anytime.
appreciate that. I want to talk to you today about your artwork specifically. Can you tell me where you started prior to your career, so your learning process?
Yes, my learning process. So, fun story, I'm actually not from Florida. I grew up in Nebraska. I went to a school surrounded by cornfields, which was awesome. Our yearbook title when I was a senior was Children of the Corn. So we were, isn't that crazy? We were a really small school. I think I had a graduating class of like 40 people. And then I went to school in Lincoln. I graduated from the University of Lincoln, and my grandma was like, oh my gosh, it's an hour away. That's so far. Like, we were all so close growing up, small town. So I went to the University of Lincoln, and I got an advertising degree as well as an art degree. I was actually one class short of having the full-on art degree, but I didn't want to give my parents a heart attack, so I did both, and they marry each other very well. I feel like having a business, it's nice to have an advertising or a business background. I talk to a lot of artists that are like wanting to do this full time. I'm like, oh, don't forget to focus on the business side of it as well, because they go together hand in hand, and that was something I didn't even realize until you get into the weeds of it. So I got a degree at the University of Lincoln, and then I went straight into advertising because I didn't think that art was a career choice, really, like truly. I had a lot of teachers that said that, which is funny. The people that you're paying all this money to, they're like, 6% of artists really make it, and you're like, oh, I'm starting to question, is this the right career choice? So I went into advertising for a while, and I created ads for the newspaper. So I was the person they met with, and I would design everything, and I was doing art on the side. So lots of commission pieces. My work now mainly is mural work and commissions, but at the time I was doing commissions on the side, and it started building, and I'm like, well, maybe, like, could this be? And I had like, I think it was a 6-month wait list at that time, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it, let's just do it. So you just dive in, and you don't look back, and you hope for the best, and it worked out. It's been 9 years now, so it'll be 9 years in September. But yeah, long story short, University of Lincoln, Nebraska.
How do you get your art out there in the world?
That's a great question. So for me, as an advertising major, I like to see it from all different points of view. What I've realized is social media has been 1,000,000% a huge impact in word of mouth. Social media and word of mouth. Word of mouth at this point is what I really rely on. I've been doing it for long enough where people have all these different awesome connections, and it's just kind of spread that way, so I'm super thankful. But I post on Instagram and Facebook. I try to do it a few times a week. I'm really bad about it. But I've gotten some of my biggest clients through Instagram, and it's wild. People that I would never ever expect to work for in a million years have reached out via like the Instagram hashtags. So just making sure you're using those right, posting, letting people see your personality, because it truly is like a connection with not only like the artist but their work as well. And we're going back and forth a lot throughout the process, so learning what you want and the style that you want, and having a trusting conversation or a trusting relationship where you can tell me if you don't like something. It won't hurt my feelings. You're at the end of the day, you're giving me your money to create something that you're going to enjoy for forever. I want it to be timeless. So yeah, it's a really cool relationship that we build by the end of the process.
What kind of commission pieces do you do, or have you been doing?
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. So lately I've done a lot of portraits and human families and pet portraits. A lot of just pieces that mean a lot to people. It's crazy because you get this little window into their life, and it's a very personal window, and so we grow really close really quickly. Lately I've been doing a lot of pets that have passed away, or family members that have it's kind of sad endings, and but at the end of the day, you're able to create something that means so much to them, and they come here, and I feel like I cry every single time they come. I'm like, thank you for coming, and thank you for letting me be a part of something that's so special to you. But then you get really happy things too. I've painted a lot of wedding portraits, wedding flowers recently. I'm trying to think of all my commissions that I have right now. It's a variety. I think for me, there's some artists that focus in one genre, one style of art, but for me, I just enjoy doing everything. I feel like I would get bored if I just did pets the rest of my life. I enjoy doing pets, but I like to do portraits and different things as well. So yeah, it's a good variety. And then commissions are way different than mural work. Murals are more like branding and creating a safe space that makes you feel a certain way, warm and fuzzy or excited, or whatever it may be, whatever the purpose is. So they're two different things, but yeah, it's a variety. It's never boring over here.
Okay, something that you said I wanted to come back to.
Yeah.
When you're meeting the people who are getting to be a little bit in their life, don't you feel, or do you feel really that the soul of your painting comes from that relationship? Or
Definitely.
You peek into them?
Yeah, that's a great way to view that. I love that you said that. No, it's a relationship that you're building, and it's that feeling that you carry into your piece of work. Like when I'm painting, I don't necessarily like you're focusing on what you're painting, but it's more of a feeling. I've done it for so long, and I mean, any artist, you're an artist as well, you forget that you're doing it and you're just enjoying the process, and you're thinking about what you're creating and the relationship that you're building with that person and what this picture really means to them. So yeah, I like that you said it that way. That's beautiful.
So what medium do you use for your artwork?
Okay, so when it comes to commissions, I do oils, and then I also do book illustrations and digital art, so that's all on my iPad. I graduated like knowing how to do Adobe, like all the Adobe suites, so Illustrator, Photoshop, all those things. But since I've gotten my iPad, if you're a digital artist, you get this, but like I had a Wacom, I don't even know, but I would draw this way and then the screen was right here, and it's not super natural. So when you're drawing, obviously it's nice to see what you're drawing and it's just right there. So I got my iPad and I've dove into Procreate, and Procreate's incredible. And a lot of artists that are doing this, like, well, I've interviewed a few other artists that have been moved mountains, and they use Procreate, and I'm like, this is amazing. It's $10. It's so accessible to everyone. The kids are using it, and it's a high quality tool that you can use, and it creates amazing results. It's incredible. So Procreate, and then for murals, I use exterior latex paint that I buy from Sherwin-Williams. They have a million different brands. I use Duration, so it's incredible. It has a UV protectant built into it, like all these different things I could tell you. Hire me, Sherwin. No, just joking. But they have a wide variety of paints that are awesome to use, and that's what I use for my murals.
So what brand do you prefer in oil paints?
Okay, so there's a few different ones. I probably could show you. I've recently got into water-based oils because they're easier to clean as well. But Winsor & Newton is pretty awesome.
Okay.
I feel like that's the good go-to. I've used better brands and I've used worse brands, and you can tell a difference. Do you use oils as well?
I do.
Okay, you can tell a difference.
Yes.
Like
The
the
color
cheaper.
saturation, absolutely.
Yeah.
The oil itself.
Mhm.
I suddenly find oils running. I'm like, what the heck?
Yes, yes.
How did that separate from
Oh, it's so frustrating, and it gets like very loose and watery, and yeah, like you said, it separates, and to me it's harder to work with, and I'd rather spend a little bit more money and have that nice bright color and like the thickness and be able to spread it. But if I want it to be watery, let me decide it should be watery and use mediums to make it more watery. I love liquid and different things like that as well. So yeah.
So bringing up liquid, do you use any other mediums in your painting?
Mainly,
to create more
yeah.
texture.
Yeah, good question. There is a million different mediums out there, and I have tried all of them. Yeah. I've tried linseed oil, I've tried a bunch of different things. I think what I've always gone back to is keeping it simple, and I just use liquid, like for the most part. I use Gambar's Photo Finish High Gloss, and I put that on top of all my paintings.
Mm-hmm.
This one, you can kind of see it's like super shiny, and I like the shinier look on the top of my paintings. They have matte versions of, top coats that you can put on. That'll just protect your piece long term, just a top coat, but it also like evens out your tones, because liquid tends to make things shiny. And what liquid does, you probably already know this, but for the people that don't, it speeds up the drying process. Oils take 6 months to fully dry, but I add everything to them, so they take a few days to fully dry. But it gives you like a different sheen at the end of the day, and I need it to be cohesive. So the Gambar finish for me, I think, has worked really well. They have a million different things, so definitely use what works best for you. I also use Turpenoid to clean out my brushes at the end of the day. Oil is no fun to clean. I've gotten in the practice of using gloves because I don't like it to seep into my skin. Kind of, when you start to think about it, you're like, ooh, it's a big, still, and I don't want it to get into my skin. So I've been using gloves lately. But yeah, I think those are all the tools that I've used. I'm trying to imagine.
And the cadmium and the paint is poisonous.
Exactly, yeah. And there's certain brands that certain colors that are worse than others. So, like you said, it's better to be safe than sorry, and gloves are a good alternative to just making things. I know.
Yes.
I'm trying.
I even put my fingers into my painting.
Yes.
So I find myself.
So switch that out a little bit.
And actually, that looks good. Let me do it again.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, out from office, one of the people that I was copying, taking the lead from for a while, and a lot of his things looked like somebody's sitting with their fingers. So
isn't that fun?
Occasionally, I'll be like, "Oh, the heck, I'll just do this."
Good for you. Good for you.
We use Tonka toy tires.
Honestly, isn't it crazy what we do?
Absolutely.
It's crazy. We've used everything at this point. Toothbrush. Yep. That's
Kitchen
wild.
scrapers.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think. I've used toothpicks. I've used the things that you clean your ear out with. What are those called? No, not toothpicks. Well, I can't even hear it. Q-tips. And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a photo of just all these random things that I had to use. Abstract pieces lend to random things.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I teach paint classes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays out of my studio, and my students make fun of me because I'll start squinting and they're like, oh God, she's squinting again. But it simplifies things, so it makes it so everything blends together, and you can focus more on like the values, colors, and lighting versus like the actual figure and the details. Like when you're outside, you start doing that as well. You're like, okay, so this is the base. It's nice to simplify things at first whenever you're approaching any painting. You get this, but break it down into colors and blocks, and then get that down, and then your heart can breathe a little bit, and then you can go into the details.
Do you still have a paint? I know I do. Every time there's a white canvas in front of me, I take the brush, I get a paint on it, and stop, and I just look at it. It's such a bright
I
white.
know. Yeah, you're like,
at first,
ooh.
I don't want to ruin the white.
But then it's so satisfying. Like once you've done the first stroke, you're like, bring it, baby. Yeah.
Who would be an artist that would be your inspiration?
Ooh, Thomas Kincaid.
Oh,
right? I feel like he's just timeless. He's amazing. He's incredible. I'm your biggest fan. No, I think lighting is difficult, and it's not something that comes. I feel like every artist has their thing, and lighting I've studied a lot throughout the years, and it's not something that comes natural to me. Understanding light, it's more scientific than anything. So, like seeing how a light bounces off and how color interacts with light, and the way he does it is just jaw-dropping. And I could just stare at his pieces. I feel like it's like it just sucks you in, and you're like, what am I missing? Like there's always something. So
any piece of his is emotional.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, I feel like he's my go-to.
You want to show us some of your pieces, please?
Yeah, definitely. I love color. I love like anything bright and vibrant. I like to avoid black until the very last moment, so that way it doesn't like suck the life out of like all just the bright colors that are there, and then you add those like little dots of black, and you're like, ooh, yum. So, there's a flower piece. This is a piece I did for my cousin. This one's kind of has a funny story. Thank you. So the original, this is a reproduction, but the original, I finished it. It was a wedding gift. Her favorite place in the world is Chicago, and I did oils. So oils take forever to dry. Well, last minute Kaitlyn decided to do it, a few weeks before her wedding. So I'm on the plane and I'm carrying this painting like this. It was a 16 by 20, and I'm like, oh Lord, like this isn't gonna end well. And I'm walking, and there's like kiddos running everywhere, and I go to sit down, and I'm just holding it because if it moves a little this way, like I'm gonna get oil paint on me, a little that way. You're now invested in the process. Sorry, random friend, you know what I mean? And the flight attendant comes over and she goes, ma'am, like you're gonna have to put that above. And I'm like, oh God, like you don't even understand the emotional trauma that it took for us to get to this little spot right here with this painting. So I put up there and I prayed. I'm like, Lord, like please just let this thing not get ruined before we get there. So we got there and it was fine, which has not always been the case. I've had bases smudged and I've had to redo them, but yeah, there's Chicago. I did a wave painting over there, you can kind of see. I tend to get caught up in commissions and I paint for myself maybe one time a year. And so that wave was that one time a year. So probably maybe halfway done. Super colorful. As you can tell, I'm in my color stage of life. This one's in progress as well. It's maybe like a fourth of the way done. If you know artists, there's a piece that we started, everyone has it, 5 years ago, and they just haven't finished it. So there's mine. Okay, here's a good example of what I did in Procreate. So this is my dog, Willie. And I drew this on my iPad, so I do a lot of pet commissions. He is just a little sweetie. He's upstairs right now because he'd be jumping all over everything. I have more of my mural work on all of my social media. You can kind of, it's very different than this. It's huge, bright, like, I guess it just depends on the client, but that is a whole different world of things. So yeah, those are just some of the pieces.